Michael Giga Chad Bitcoin Bull Saylor just laid out a radical strategy. He says companies should flip 90% of their capital into Bitcoin, but what if you could do the same? It's meaning you're not a company, but you're a average wage or salary employee. Could this be the secret path to wealth? We're going to dive into his strategy and break it down on how you could benefit, so stay tuned.
Chasing altcoins feels like throwing darts blindfolded. Every loss hurts and every win is fleeting. Stop the cycle. Bitcoin is the safest bet in crypto, and Drip2 BTC makes it even better with high-yield wallets and discounts. Buy Bitcoin, deposit, and earn while you sleep. It's time to build wealth you can count on.
Hey guys, welcome back. Drip Coach here with Drip and Farm for Poverty, where we don't trust, we verify, and operate with integrity and transparency. If you've been in crypto or aka Bitcoin much longer than, let's say, a month, then you are very familiar with Michael Saylor. If you haven't been in around that long, then quick TLDR, he was the CEO of a company that focused on software and eventually found he had too much cash that was doing absolutely nothing for him but losing him money. So he decided to put it on to Bitcoin around 2020. And now he has made his way into the Fortune 500 and multiple billions. I think he's like 300x the value of his company, renamed from MicroStrategy to Strategy within the last 4 years. So he is also a engineer, MIT grad, if I'm not mistaken. So he will wax poetically about Bitcoin for hours and hours and hours. But in this video, we're going to listen to a strategy he breaks down about what companies should do to essentially add more value to their company and get out from the collapsing Ponzi of Fiat. And we're going to just take that and learn how to apply it to the normie, because you may not be running a multi-million or billion-dollar company.
So when we go to the question of companies adopting the Bitcoin standard, Jeff, I think the primary guiding principle is you want to do this well. The question is, are you going to adopt Bitcoin as your primary treasury reserve asset? That means like flip 90% of your long-term capital to Bitcoin, right? 5%, 2% doesn't really do the job. You really want the vast majority of your long-term capital. Substantially, you want 100% of long-term capital to be in Bitcoin. And I define that as you got working capital. If you need $50 million in working capital, then you hold that in the fiat currency of your liabilities. Everything else is long-term capital. You flip that to Bitcoin. After that, right?
So that right there is the strategy, basically. And I've mentioned this on this channel before and kind of what I've started doing recently. So I know a lot of, most of us are not getting paid in Bitcoin. And many of us probably live kind of paycheck to paycheck, maybe with a little bit of savings, but I forgot what the stat was, especially in the Western countries where they basically don't have enough money in savings to cover a major expense. So, which is at least 3 months of income saved. I think 6 is preferred. So I'm pretty sure the vast majority of people are pretty much just kind of what you get in a month, you spend most of that and maybe you save a little bit. So the idea of what he's pitching is that you'd have 90%, and if possible, 100% of your income into Bitcoin. And the narrative he kind of kicked down was 2% or 5% won't cut it. And that's because of the adoption rate of Bitcoin, the growing popularity, the price at which it's going to go, and the scarcity of it. So you just being able to put in 2 to 5% right now, fighting against people like him, and now what Jack Mallers has done with his company and GameStop and all the nation states and things of that nature. It's just like, these are people throwing billions into this limited asset. So the only way for you to kind of get ahead is to be able to double down, get leverage in a safe way, and stack sats much quicker. So if you can, the strategy he's referring to is that you would have some kind of savings built up, and that's the working capital that you need. And ideally that would be in a stable coin, so you can get debanked and be able to use this anywhere, because you'll also be able to generate more yield off a stable coin. Obviously, finding a safe place to store that is going to be paramount. And if you're able to generate 4 to 5% interest on that, that's way better than you would get in a traditional fiat currency bank or savings account. And then the rest you would try to put directly into Bitcoin for your income and use some kind of Bitcoin-backed loan that you trust that would be able to give you cash or collateral against that. And then if it's some of the good loans like Letton has, then you don't have to pay the interest, on it, and you can roll it over each year. And that means whenever it comes due, based off of the appreciating potential of Bitcoin, you'll have more US dollar value of your Bitcoin by the time the loan is due, and you would just roll that principal over and not pay anything and continue stacking more sats with your income. And then if you want to go the full like Giga Chad scenario, you would actually have a full-term life insurance policy that would actually pay off the interest when you die. And that way you just roll this over to a family member or somebody else. But that's getting way ahead of ourselves, but just wanted to stamp that kind of piece of what he's talking about and then go into the next bit where he basically explains how most of us are doing this wrong because of how we're looking at this equation.
Microsoft or Apple. So the real advice is focus upon the balance sheet, where it is very easy to be better than the US dollar standard or the fiat standard company. So that's the part of your business you can fix. You can fix your balance sheet. And most people don't. Like most people don't focus on that. They put 98% or 99% of their effort into their P&L. And they're basically pouring 99% of their focus and their energy in a losing cause, and they're not going to win. And they're putting 1% into their balance sheet where you're 99% likely to succeed on the balance sheet under the Bitcoin standard, and you're 99% likely to fail in the operating business on the fiat standard. But conventional wisdom is to focus on the operation and dismiss the balance sheet. Ethereum and...
So what do you think about that? Like that kind of tongue-in-cheek statistic. I don't know how accurate it is, but you could actually give it some credence by saying that we know that fiat is indeed going to fail. So if you are trying to get wealthy on a system that is designed to, one, benefit only those that already have massive amounts of wealth. That's where you're talking about the big companies. Like you're not going to outdo Google, Amazon, or Meta or anything like that. Like you could try. I'm not gonna say you're not going to, but the statistical likelihood of anyone watching this video being able to outdo them, the odds are not stacked in your favor. So instead, you can outdo them on the balance sheet by stacking sats and accumulating Bitcoin. So if you believe and understand and agree that all fiat currencies go to zero, then that is a failing strategy right out the gate. It may not be in your lifetime. It might be in your lifetime. I have no idea how quick or soon, depending on what country you're living in, they will have reached hyperinflation and have to rebalance the debt or something happens. But we do know that in our lifetime that Bitcoin will still be here because the last coin doesn't get mined till like 2140. So unless human beings watching this find some way to extend life substantially, you'll be dead before the last Satoshi is mined. And therefore, we can at least know that that value will continue to accrue and the network won't collapse, minus or borrowing any kind of black swan event that would be much more catastrophic than worrying about stacking wealth at this stage. So if that's going to be the case, then you do have a chance to survive and win if you are looking at accumulating Bitcoin by putting most of your long-term capital into Bitcoin. So if you are, let's say, a 3 to 5K a month wage earner, then like I said, your working capital will be basically that 1 to 2 months of cash in your bank account for expenses and emergencies. And then any savings beyond that, that's your balance sheet. That's where Bitcoin comes in, and that's where you want to start accumulating more Bitcoin. So maybe you can't just get your full paycheck and put into Bitcoin and then take the loan out that I was talking about. Maybe that's too risky, or it's not enough to cover your expenses, because with the loan, you only get 50%. So that means you'd have to be living off of 50% of your income right now. So most likely you need 80 some odd percent to 90% of your paycheck. So that means you can still start DCAing the remaining 10 to 20% of your paycheck each pay period into Bitcoin and using that as the savings and safe haven. And then if you want to get really bullish, figure out how to cut expenses and maybe even move to a cheaper country if you're paying, way too much wherever you're currently staying for food and housing, insurance, things of that nature. So I believe wholeheartedly in this strategy. I have recently adopted that. Over the last 3 to 4 months, I've been able to 3x my DCA strategy. So, and actually, since I've been getting ready to move, I've actually been able to save even more, because what I do out here is I pay for my rent in advance, basically. So do like 6 months up front. So the last 3 months that I've been out here in Cambodia transitioning to leave, I've also been selling a lot of the little knickknacks and things I want to get rid of, extra clothes, some furniture, stuff I've accumulated over the last 9 years. Well, ironically, that stuff that I sold was enough to actually pay for the electricity and food and the normal monthly expenses that I accrued over the last 3 months. So that means I saved that other expense that I would have spent it on, and I put that into Bitcoin. So there's always opportunities if you're willing to cut back on some things, do without, maybe not go out every week or skip a movie or skip some takeout food or something like that. Like, this is the only opportunity I think that we're going to get. And I'm actually uncertain for how altcoins will perform after this cycle, to be honest. So my big thing of the altcoins that I have right now, I want them to just go up a little bit more, and then I'm flipping them into Bitcoin, and I just want to hold Bitcoin, because everything else I'm actually extremely uncertain about. I've seen some bullish news about Cardano and XRP and all that, but yeah, I just don't know how it's going to play out, especially since a lot of those tokens are tied to US administration, and that can change at the drop of a dime. So right now it's bullish and everything's great, but you can literally get a new administration in there and they just roll back everything that's been done. So I would rather just stack Bitcoin, and if something bad happens to Bitcoin in the US where they confiscate it like they did with the gold during Nixon's time frame, well, you just move. So that's why you keep your Bitcoin off of exchanges and you got nothing to worry about. However, that caveat is if you're trying to use Bitcoin-backed loans, most of those exchanges, well, Coinbase operates in the US. Ledin, I think you would be safe because they're not US based, or they weren't. I think they were Canada originally. Actually, I'm sure. They didn't have to pay back any money during the big FTX and Luna collapse, but I have no idea what would happen if countries wanted to confiscate Bitcoin. I have no idea what exchanges would have to do. So that would be interesting. But that's why you always, not your keys, not your coins, not your keys, not your crypto. So if you keep it yourself, you got nothing to worry about. So I wouldn't have all of your capital in loans, because you never know what the hell's going to happen. But anyway, that's the Michael Saylor strategy for putting all of your capital, or as much of your capital as possible, into Bitcoin and just stacking sats and riding that wealth wave. So let me know what you guys think. What are your thoughts? Something you've looked into? Have you gotten debanked? Are you dollar cost averaging still into Bitcoin? Do you believe we're going to go lower still? Are you still sitting on the sidelines? I'm just curious to get some feedback, see where you guys are at. All right, smash that HBO special, help brother out, like, subscribe, comment down below. And until next time, lift daily and achieve your impossible. See you.